What about the meeting with Trump? Would you meet with him when he's in Detroit tomorrow?
I see no point in meeting with him because I don't think the man has any bit of care about what our workers stand for, what the working class stands for. He serves a billionaire class, and that's what's wrong with this country.
UAW President Shawn Fain made it abundantly clear that he does not see former President Donald Trump as a warrior for the working class. He had no intentions of meeting with Trump as he addressed workers, non-unionized workers at Drake Enterprises in Clinton Township, Michigan yesterday. Now the question remains, who attended Trump's speech last night? Were they just employees from Drake Enterprises? Were there any unionized employees there? Did anyone from the United Auto Workers who are currently striking show up to support the former president? Well, the truth is unsettling, a little shady, and I want to give you the reporting surrounding the story. So let's begin with NBC News, which reported that the audience was a mix of workers from the host company, again, Drake Enterprises, and UAW members and area politicians. Many in the crowd waved Union Members for Trump signs printed in the University of Michigan's blue and gold colors. Fascinating, okay, great. So it sounds like, regardless of how I feel about Trump, that makes it appear as though there were in fact some UAW workers there, some unionized workers who support Trump and see him as a warrior for the working class. Except then you dig a little deeper. And one thing that I would recommend to anyone in regard to like media literacy and kind of getting to the truth of any story is these national sources, whether it be New York Times, Washington Post, NBC News, they're fine, but see if there's any local reporting on it. Luckily, the Detroit News reported on this story, and reporters from the Detroit News spoke to some of the individuals who attended, including those who held signs that implied that they were unionized workers. Here's what they found. One individual in the crowd who held a sign that said, "Union Members for Trump," acknowledged that she wasn't a union member when approached by a Detroit News reporter after the event. So that's a little strange. I mean, if you're not a union worker, why would you hold a sign that says "Union Workers for Trump"? I don't know, but there's more. One person with a sign that read "Auto Workers for Trump" said he wasn't an auto worker when asked for an interview. Both people didn't provide their names. Fascinating. Now look, let's be 1000% clear. It is unclear, absolutely unclear, why they presented themselves in such a deceptive way or how many, if any, United Auto Workers or unionized employees were present at Trump's speech. But Drake Enterprises is not a union shop. It's important to know that. And they have around 150 employees total, okay? The Detroit News reported that there was a crowd there. An estimated 400 to 500 people attended Trump's speech. It's not a small crowd, great. But who were these people? It's hard to believe that there were a ton of UAW strikers attending the speech when the president of the UAW, Shawn Fain, hasn't been very supportive of Donald Trump, doesn't see Donald Trump as a warrior for the working class. And here's an example of some of what Shawn Fain had to say about Donald Trump in the past.
I find a pathetic irony that the former president is going to hold a rally for union members at a non-union business. And all you have to do is look at his track record. His track record speaks for itself. In 2008, during the Great Recession, he blamed UAW members. He blamed our contracts for everything that was wrong with these companies. That's a complete lie. In 2015, when he was running for president, he talked about doing a rotation, taking all these good paying jobs in the Midwest and moving them somewhere in the South where people will work for less money, and then to make people beg for their jobs back at lower wages. And the ultimate show of how much he cares about our workers was in 2019 when he was the president of the United States. Where was he then? Our workers at GM were on strike for 60 days, for 2 months. They were out there on the picket lines. I didn't see him hold a rally. I didn't see him stand up at the picket line, and I sure as hell didn't hear him comment about it.
So here's the question.
He was missing in action.
So it's hard to believe that someone like Shawn Fain, who represents the United Auto Workers, would say those kinds of things about Donald Trump and then see a ton of United Auto Workers attend Trump's speech. Now, NBC News also asked whether there were any UAW workers present at Trump's speech, and the answers were, to be honest with you, pretty hilarious. So there was Brian Pennenbecker, who's a former auto worker who organizes this Facebook page titled Auto Workers for Trump. And here's what he told NBC News in an interview. There are a few strikers here, yes. I don't know where they're at, but there are several, a handful. There was one striking UAW member there named Scott Maliphant. So there's at least one. We know that there was at least one, okay? And here's what he had to say. I haven't seen anybody yet, Maliphant, wearing a Make America Great Again hat, said as he waited for Trump to arrive. I'm sure there might be a few. And look, I think it's clear at this point that there wasn't like this giant crowd of unionized workers who loved Trump so much that they decided to attend the speech. There might have been a handful, we don't know the exact numbers. But what we do know is that Donald Trump and his campaign has a history of literally paying people to show up to his campaign events, holding signs and pretending to be supporters of his. I think a really good example of that is what happened in 2015 when he announced that he was running for president. Remember the coming down from the elevator moment? Well, we learned quite a bit from Corey Lewandowski, who at the time was his campaign manager. Now, several years later, while speaking to the press, he had some pretty strong allegations about what happened in terms of drawing a crowd for Trump's presidential announcement, okay? Michael Cohen decided that he was going to hire one of his buddies and pay his buddy without getting any campaign approval. You know, $50 for every person to come in to stand in Trump Tower. Again, that's quite an accusation. Now, Michael Cohen denies this, but Michael Cohen also said that Donald Trump hired David Schwartz from the PR firm Gotham Government Relations and Communication to basically put together the event professionally, okay? So David Schwartz, by the way, confirmed this. And his confirmation is freaking hilarious. He says, the reality is we hired 50 people, some of whom were part-time actors. I found out later on. But we hired 50 people to help coordinate an event that brought in thousands of people. By the way, the Hollywood Reporter at the time that the campaign launched reported that the campaign had offered $50 to actors to attend the announcement. So look, I share that with you not to just dunk on Trump. Who cares about that? I say that to you because much like how Twitter bots operate, it's all meant to give you the illusion that a certain person or a certain message is popular, or the illusion that a certain person or message is unpopular. You can manipulate numbers, you can manipulate on social media, certainly. You can manipulate accounts to make it appear as though there's a giant amount of people who either support something or do not support something. And in the case of presidential campaigns or any political campaign really, you can just find a PR firm that's willing to dole out $50 a piece to actors willing to pretend to be your supporters. What really matters is the truth. And the truth is Donald Trump has not really been a warrior for the working class. And I think unionized workers are aware of that. Because anytime a powerful individual, certainly a powerful individual in government, has something negative to say about organized labor, they pay attention, they know, and they don't like it. The fact that Donald Trump, through his campaigning, decided to go after the UAW, to go after the unionized workers, was not something that they took lightly. It's not something that they forgot. So the idea that he is highly popular among these people is laughable to say the least. Who knows how many actual workers, unionized or not unionized, attended that event last night. But regardless of one event, I think it's important to look at his record and look at what he has done to either support or hurt workers. And based on what I've seen throughout my time covering him, covering the policies he passed during his time as president, he hasn't really cared much about workers. He has cared a lot about himself. And he even used last night's speech to really just talk about all of his grievances, his indictments. He did some testing on what kind of nicknames he would call people, whether it was fascist or Marxist. I mean, that's what he does. He loves to riff, but usually when he riffs about what he wants and needs, rather than addressing the wants and needs of ordinary people.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below, because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.